afternoon, everyone, and welcome to VSC Season 3. Today's webinar will be a webinar focused on Hollywood acting and stunts. If you guys are new to our program, Virtual Student Experiences is a pro bono initiative spearheaded for students by students. And we at Virtual Student Experiences want to be the inspiration for aspiration. Our goal is to give students around the world an opportunity to hear from professionals in their career industry of interest in a friendly and casual setting. And if you're a student that knows what you want to do in the future, we at VSC want to encourage, allow, and connect with professionals. At VSC, students are given the chance to decide if their career choice fits their personality, skills, and overall interests. To VSC, you'll be able to hear from a wide variety of guests from a wide variety of seniority levels. And to find out more information or to sign up to be notified of other webinars, you can visit our website at www.virtualstudentexperiences.com. Our very special guest for today is Mr. Tim Storms. Mr. Storms grew up in a small town in Minnesota where he learned gymnastics from age 4 and studied martial arts, earning his first black belt at age 16. He performed as a clown and juggler throughout high school and college, studying the underworld juggling champion Scott Burton. He learned clowning from world-renowned clown Lloyd Bryant and went on to found his own performance troupe, The Oddballs. Mr. Storms earned a degree in classical and musical theater, conjunctively studying all types of movement, including stage combat, mime, and dance. Using the vast array of skills he'd acquired, he directed, choreographed, and acted in hundreds of productions, including plays, films, and professional ballets. Mr. Storms ventured to Los Angeles and became a professional actor, stuntman, and fight choreographer while training Lawrence Fishburne for The Matrix. He began specializing in Hong Kong-style wire work and wushu kung fu. Combining all of those various but similar movement styles inspired him to create his own school, the Academy of Movement Arts and Sciences. Mr. Storm's passion is finding the synergy of all of the different movement and performing styles that he has studied and conveying that passion to his students. So thank you so much for joining us here today, Mr. Storms.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite.
And just to start us off, can you tell us from your perspective what you do as a stuntman and really how you got into that field?
What I do as a stuntman is there are several different aspects of it. There are a lot of different aspects. What I do is similar to what the actors do. I'm either portraying a character and doing the physical action more physical than regular actors would be doing. Fight scenes, fire, driving, car stunts, falls off of buildings, falls on the ground, weaponry, water things, motorcycles. There's a whole range of things that we do in the stunt world. But as I said, it's relatively based on the same thing that the actors are doing. We're portraying characters, or sometimes we'll do stunt doubling, which is actually stepping in and doing the dangerous or difficulties for those actors themselves, and keeping them safe. So we're a little bit more expendable, or a little bit more versatile with what we do than the actor themselves. So that's basically what we're doing in the stunt world.
And then can you tell me how you got into that field and really where your passion began?
When I was 4 years old, I started jumping around. My brother was a gymnast, so he taught me gymnastics from 2 years old. I was doing handstands and climbing up the doorways and flipping off the swing set in the backyard and doing a lot of dangerous stuff. And so my dad took me to the gym and got me acclimated to gymnastics. So I started at a very young age. And I was always, very versatile and adept with, as I said, flipping around, jumping around, doing strength skills, and I could always do twice as many pull-ups as the other kids, and I could jump higher and jump off of things and things like that. So that was the beginning of it. I started martial arts when I was 12. Taekwondo was my first one, but I've studied a big range of martial arts, and I've taught a number of them throughout my career, and I still do. Um, but that the combination of those two things pretty much cemented my passion for performance and wanting to be on stage, because with the martial arts and the gymnastics, I was always put up there in front of a crowd to do what I did, even though I was very shy at that age, and I didn't want to speak, but doing the physical things always came very naturally and very easily to me, and I liked being in front of a crowd, but as I said, I was shy. Then I really tried to push myself, and I started taking speech classes and uh, juggling and clowning and things like that in high school and junior high, and that led to more combinations of things, putting things together, and starting my own troupe to combine all those things that I was already doing: the martial arts, the gymnastics, and some fight stuff, things like that. So everything in my life has always had a synergy that way. It's combined very nicely. So then once I went to college, I was still quite shy, but I knew I wanted to perform a bit. So I offhandedly auditioned for a theater scholarship, even though I was going to be an electronics engineer. And I got the scholarship, and I said, "Well, I'll do that for this year, and then next year I'll transfer back into the electronics engineering because I really want to be an engineer." And so I took my first theater classes, and I got on stage, and I got cast in a few productions, and I started teaching some stage combat classes, and took fencing classes, and a whole bunch of different movement classes, gymnastics and ballet and tap dance and all types of dance and movement and everything that fit together. And one year led to the next, and they kept offering me scholarships for theater, and I kept saying, "Okay, next year I'll do the electronics engineering," but I never quite made it out of the theater, except for graduating from that. So it's been a culmination of always one thing leading to the next, and just because I wanted to try something, I saw opportunities, and I got that at a very young age from my dad and my mom, and especially my dad. He was always putting me out there, and he really endorsed the idea of if you don't try it, you don't know what it's going to be like. And for the most part, I liked it, and that led to the next thing. So I was always trying strange things, and my dad would say, "Hey, why don't you try to do this with this?" Combining skills. And before I knew it, I was doing things like parkour before parkour was a thing. I was, flipping off of buildings and park benches and things like that way before it was a thing. So that was how that transpired. Doing the same thing, I was in theater, and I still had the abilities of a martial artist and a gymnast, and I was learning more stunt stage fighting type skills, and that parlayed into actually doing stunt work for various local productions, plays, and small films and student films and things like that. And I fell in love with that, and once again one thing led to the next, and I moved out here to Los Angeles after a long circuitous route of doing theater and film and things like that. And right away, I started teaching gymnastics and martial arts and training people, and doing classical theater and things like that. So I was doing a lot of things. I wasn't doing a lot of film work though, but I was kind of a purist at the time, and I wanted to stick to the theater route, but it doesn't make a lot of money out here in Los Angeles. And somebody offered me, to play a role in a small movie, a student film, I think. And I said, yeah, sure. And they gave me some money for it. And I went, wow, this is actually more money than I make doing a play. And then I got the lucky break of being able to teach Lawrence Fishburne and the other actors on a little film called The Matrix, and that really cinched it. I got to see the Hong Kong wirework team and choreographers, and a lot of times they could not really convey what they wanted to say or show to the performers. So they would have me step in and physically demonstrate it or translate it into my terms as a mover and martial artist. They knew I had a background in it, even though it wasn't nearly on the level of what they were doing. But I was very good at picking things apart and seeing skills that they were doing and saying, well, this is exactly how they want you to do this. And so that really threw me into the mix when it came to doing stunts and specializing in wire work and fight choreography and Hong Kong style fight choreography and things like that. And it just snowballed from there. So
Interesting. So, I mean, I guess when you were breaking into the industry, what were some of the steps or requirements that you had to meet?
Things were very different back then, way back then. You would go and there are different aspects of it when it comes to the acting world, which I was trying to pursue. So I was looking for an agent, which I got pretty quickly. But as I said, I was still doing classical theater, so that was keeping me in that world. But I would go on auditions, so that was the thing. And back then we had the trade papers. I would pick up a trade paper every Friday or whatever and look at that and see what roles were up, and I would actually go to an audition or send in a physical resume and headshot to those either casting directors or directors, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to the stunt world, it's a little bit different. I was also pushing my way into that, and we would do what's called hustling. You would go to the set, and hopefully you were able to get on set. Back then, it was much easier to just show up, and all the stunt guys would kind of give each other information. Oh, this stunt coordinator is going to be working here on this day at this house or whatever, or at this studio. So you had much better access back then. So we would go wherever the stunt coordinator was, introduce ourselves, give them our headshot, and wait around, sit around and wait and watch what they're doing and be quiet. And then when you get the chance, if you can move a mat around for them, or you can go get them a bottle of water, or anything, just make yourself useful and make yourself known. That was the big thing, just introducing yourself and showing them that you were a good person, and talk about who you knew in common and what work you'd done. Sometimes it came down to them just saying hi, and then they might get back to you, they might not. Sometimes they would say, oh, come on, I could use you right now. So that's how that would happen. After 9/11, things changed terribly because we didn't have access to, especially the studios anymore. We couldn't just walk onto a studio lot, and a lot of times we couldn't just walk up to a set. It's still, we still try to hustle, but the advent of the internet has changed things too. Everything's electronic now. You send in your resume, you send in your headshot, and bam, it's to the coordinator overnight or right away. And there used to be what were called stunt services. They were phone services, so you would subscribe to these services, and there would be a live operator, and they would get a call from the coordinators, and they would say, I need, as many guys as you can that have blonde hair that are between 5'5" and 5'10" and 160 pounds, whatever. So the stunt services would pair you up and send you out to these auditions. Now we have stunt directories and stunt services that are much more electronics based, where they have databases, and you are entered in there, and you subscribe to that, and they have your information right there, so they can look down their list and see what they want. And it still comes down to getting to know people, because in the stunt world, it's a very tight community. It's getting a lot looser now and a lot larger, so it's getting saturated and oversaturated with a lot of people. But it used to be a lot smaller, so a lot of people, you would be known pretty quickly, whether you were talented or untalented. Whether you were a good person or not, people could get along with you. You did your job. You kept quiet. You didn't make trouble, and that's how that would work. You would get to know people. You would train with them. You would show up and do social events with each other, and it was very connected that way. There's still a lot of that, and a lot of I don't even want to say nepotism, but there are definitely stunt groups that they will hire specifically from their group, and if they can't find somebody that is right for what they're doing, they'll go outside of their group. But there are professional groups, that the Stuntman's Association of America, things like that they kind of stick with their own people, and they vet their own people to make sure that those people are sticking with their ascribed performance levels. So
Interesting. And then can you talk about some of the challenges that you faced and then how you overcame those?
challenges. There are challenges all the time. Just finding the job is number one. Number two is everybody thinks that stunt work is very glamorous, and in the movies in general, and film work, etc., etc. And it can be. You're working with some famous people a lot of the time. Uh, People don't realize what kind of long hours that we spend in the business. We're there a long, long time. And especially in stunt work, it's we spend an entire day sitting on set waiting for our scene, rehearsing maybe, and then almost inevitably what happens is they get to the stunts last, because I want to clear everything out and make sure everybody is safe, and they usually get to the stunts last, and that's it can be 2 in the morning. It could be everybody's exhausted, it's cold, it's rainy or whatever, and okay, now go do a fight scene. And that's a gigantic challenge, to make that happen under a lot of rigorous conditions a lot of times, and just training for what we do. It's as I said, there are a lot of skills involved. You should know how to do fight scenes. You should know how to take a proper reaction. You should know how to do at least basic driving skills. You should, there are a lot of different things that you could specialize. You can specialize in fire or high falls or things like that. But in general, you want to keep yourself as hireable as possible, and the way to do that is really keep training. And it's people don't realize that either. When actors are not working, they're usually taking a class and training and working on their craft, and upping their skills. A lot of other jobs, you have the job and you move on and you keep doing your job. In the movie business, what people don't realize is when I get done with a movie or a TV show, I'm basically fired and I have to find my next job. So that's half of the job right there, is finding the next job and lining up the next work, or going back into training. Or in the stunt world, it could be recovering from the job that I just worked on, healing and making sure that I'm fit to go for the next thing, or losing weight or gaining muscle, or working on a skill, or certain things like that. So it's multi-faceted when it comes to having to keep up your skill level. And then it comes down to the business stuff too. I have to keep my resumes current. I have to get headshots. I have to, et cetera, et cetera. I have to keep the production part of my business going in at the same time. So,
Yeah, for sure. And then you brought up an interesting point about actually when you're in between jobs, perhaps you might have to actually recover from the previous one. So I guess how often do injuries occur on the job?
it really depends, and that's the funny thing about stunt work or action acting. Um, you usually get hurt doing the things that you don't think are dangerous, and that's what happens to a lot of actors too. It's running, and you slip on something or you trip, or those are the things that happen in real life too. In any business, the biggest danger is out in their parking lot, a trip and fall. Biggest danger is getting in and out of your own bathtub, things like that. But in the stunt world, a lot of things that will come back to bite you are the little things that you don't think are that difficult. So you don't plan them out as rigorously as you would with the bigger things. With the big things, hopefully the coordinator has planned things out, and everybody's gelled and everybody knows exactly what your cue is and when you're going. And when it's a smaller thing, sometimes you're not paying attention to those little things. So that's when you can actually get hurt. Not to say that the big things don't hurt you. Taking a big fall, I've taken some big hits, some big crashes, and I knew they were going to hurt before, and they definitely proved that they did hurt. And sometimes a lot more than I expected. I've got my bell rung, or broken bones, or torn muscles, or whatever. So
Hmm.
you know
Yeah, for sure. And then as a teacher, can you talk about, as a teacher and a founder, can you talk about um, your role at the Academy of Movement Arts and Sciences?
yes. I've always loved teaching since I was a little kid, and that comes from my dad, who was a teacher, and he taught multiple things. And I always admired that, and I kind of absorbed that from him. And the biggest aspect of that is, I think, because I've always done a lot of physical things, and I've always tried to undertake anything that was presented to me. I try to have an open mind when it comes to things like that. Uh, I, I am sometimes a very slow learner, in the fact that it takes a while for me to absorb things, because I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I've found that I absorb things a lot more easily after I'm able to teach it to someone, because everybody learns differently, orally, verbally. It's sense memory, things like that, and I like to combine a lot of those things, and it's challenging for me to discover how people learn, and how to get through to certain students. So I have to have a lot of tools. I have to know a lot of various methods to actually get through to everybody that I want to teach. And I think the thing that really cemented that in my mind was, um, first of all, teaching in college. I undertook teaching gymnastics to intramural football players, which was such a challenge, more challenging than anything that I discovered before that, because these were huge, 280-pound people that were expecting to do skills that little 120 pounders do all the time. So that was a challenge, and that, it really opened up my mind to having to dig into somebody's processes of how they're going to learn. And then beyond that, I started teaching mommy and me classes in gymnastics. And if a little baby, a little 2-year-old is not understanding what you're saying, or is getting bored, is not being challenged, is not having fun with what you're doing, they're going to leave you in the dust, and they're not going to turn back, and you're going to lose their trust immediately. And that was, I think, the biggest challenge when it came to teaching for me, is learning how to get through to, if I can teach skills to somebody on that level for the very first time, that they have no processes to actually feed off of and to assimilate things, then I know that I can do my job properly, because it's a blank slate basically, which is great. But in the same token, they can't pull things from their experience and say this works like this or this works like this. I have to teach them every part of that basic skill from the very beginning, and that's challenging, and for me, the most rewarding thing. So that's been my goal, and it's been my reward, because then I can take the basics of everything that I love to do, teaching dance, martial arts, stunts, fights, acting, whatever it is, any kind of movement, and I can see the bits and pieces of all of those things and put it all together and say, hey, let's try to do some cross training with this. Let's do a little bit of this weapon with this style of movement that isn't traditionally done together, and sometimes it fails miserably, but a lot of times it really works well, and you get a synthesis that you never expected, and it just sparks your imagination to move on to other things, and it leads to connections for a lot of things. So that's been the best experience so far for me. And I love teaching. As I said, I get to teach some amazing people. I still, from very beginners to very adept, high level international athletes, and big movie stars, and professional stunt people, et cetera, et cetera. So that's still very, very fun for me.
That's really awesome. And
Yeah.
I guess especially with the coronavirus pandemic that has really become a huge part of all of our lives, where do you see the entertainment business going in the next decade or so?
Um, well, it's luckily it's people, especially in times like this, you see a gigantic uptick of, when we're stuck inside, of all the online subscriptions for Netflix and Prime and blah blah blah. They're doing really, really well. Um, Productions themselves, we're still finding our way forward, but I think, I've done a few commercials in this time, and we really rely on a a lot of precautions, first of all, and luckily the industry makes so much money that they're able to really plow a lot of money into that precaution and into PPE and everything else that is necessary for working on a set. And honestly, the things that I've done so far and the things that I'm gearing up for, we're wearing masks constantly. They have so many people that are so hyper aware. They have COVID, specialists that are making sure everybody stays, in social distancing, and they set things up differently for the way we work. As far as I'm used to sitting down with all my buddies and eating lunch, and if I want to say hi to somebody, they're at the 3 tables down now, and so they're taking a lot of precautions, and fingers crossed, it's going to continue that way. There are some people that, unfortunately, in the business that have always kind of skated by, especially non-union productions that tend not to follow the rules and tend not to, they do their own thing so the producers and the production gets a little bit more money, but everybody else is not protected then. That's why I really appreciate right now working on the stuff that I work on, because when you have those high level actors next to you, you really have to make sure that they are being taken care of. So that's the best part. I think it's going to continue to open up, and I think everybody's going to continue to find their way. It's been up and down. Even major productions have opened, and then somebody tests positive, so they close the entire thing down, and that's happened numerous times. And we've seen ranting and raving from various people, talking about precautionary measures, et cetera, et cetera. But hopefully the vaccines will do some good, and it'll build up. I think it'll regain some momentum, and it's going to take a while, just like everything else. But like I said, I think in our business, everybody's hyper aware of what we have to do, and it's, I don't know, it's not a necessity like eating. We have to figure out very quickly methods to get food safely, to do other things safely, to do the vital things, to get to the doctor, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to movies, they're able to take, and film and everything else, they're able to take a little bit more time to figure out those precautions, and slowly ramp it up. If things go wrong, pull it back. Ramp it up, pull it back. So it's a stop-start kind of thing, and there are definitely going to be downfalls, but I think headway will be made. So
thank you so much for sharing that. And then and just in terms of skills that you use every day, can you tell me about some skills that you use that you think students should start to develop?
Skills when it comes to number one is self-motivation. It's basically a self-employment kind of situation. Even though I'm hired by productions, I'm fired by those productions immediately when I'm done with my job. So I need to look at it as, even though I need to look at the times in between those productions as my self-employment, and have my entire business ready to go, and line that up as much as possible. So anything you can do to acclimate yourself to business workings definitely help. Having if you don't have the skills to do your own taxes or your own bookkeeping or your own resumes or your things like that, find somebody very quickly, learn how to network and find people that you trust to do that for you. Secondly, as I said, we do a lot of different skills in the industry. If you want to be an actor, and I would suggest the same thing for stunt work because I come from an acting background, and whether if I'm doing a stunt, I'm still acting. I'm just physically acting it a lot more than I'm verbally acting it a lot. But I would say get as much experience if you're going to be in the film industry as a performer. Get as much experience performing as possible. Get on stage, first of all. Having a general background of just acting methods is really, really good. And that doesn't have to be on a professional level. It can be in a high school show. It could be a local college. It could be a local, community theater. It could be a lot of different things. Just get experience. That's the big thing when it comes to performance is the more experience that you have, the more roles you'll be able to put on your resume, first of all, but the more you'll be able to adapt to different things. As I said before, we're always in the situation where we have to update our skills. So whether you're an actor or a stunt person, get used to always being a student. So figure out how you can keep going. And that doesn't mean paying for classes all the time, even though sometimes that's a necessity to get into an acting class, an on-camera acting class. But figure out ways to actually figure that out for yourself. And nowadays it's so easy. You can make your own movies with your own phone, and you can go online. It's amazing. I'm amazed. So I wish I'd had these resources when I was first starting out, that I could go find a tutorial on YouTube of how to shoot a fight scene, or how to, examples of acting scenes, or how to do a monologue, or things like that. There's a resource for everything now, and almost all of it is on YouTube. It's all on your computer, though. It's all on the internet, and you can find those things. So get used to that. Another thing, as I said, is learn how to communicate, whether that's on stage or take a speech class. Don't be afraid. And that's one of my biggest things in life that I learned. Was I was terrified of speaking in front of people, and then taking up comedy and everything that I did made me just really embrace that and really start to love that and enjoy people, and try to learn from everybody that you meet. No matter what they do, you can learn from them and embrace that in our humanity, whether you like that person or not. I can pick and choose from people that I really dislike, but characteristics that I want to use in a character, or that I want to embody in a film, or whatever like that. Or it's always a great choice for me to be able to do things like that. So, and I think in general, learning how to get along with people is just going to help a lot. So is that specific enough, or
Almost definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
Just sort of to close us off, do you have any final words of inspiration or suggestions to students that are interested in getting into this acting and stunts person industry?
Not just the industry. I think this leads to that. Is don't be afraid of what's to come in life, and especially now, being through this pandemic, and everything that everyone is going through, it's there are still so many great things in life that we need to embrace, and we need to embrace living and really trying to spread joy and love to other humans, and that's really what we're here for. That's why I love being in the business, because I'm making movies. I get to, it's thrilling for me. I get to go into space, and I get to be, go back in the past and things like that. But what I'm really doing and what I'm really enjoying is I am passing on my joy of my craft and communicating to other people and letting them feel something, and that really brings out joy in me, and it brings out joy in them, whether whatever that medium is, whatever their medium is. Learn how to spread that, and learn how to just be a part of the human race.
Most definitely. Yeah, I mean, I just want to thank you again so much for just taking the time to come and chat with me here today and share your knowledge, your experiences, and really all the different tips and tricks that you have for students really interested in getting into this industry.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.